What is up, basketball sickos? Today, I'll be talking about my favorite big man in this 2026 NBA draft cycle so far. And just to clarify, this list is just a group of big men I've enjoyed rooting for this basketball season, and this isn't any sort of personal ranking in any specific order, although I will discuss the area in which I think they will be drafted at this point in the year, but I'll do that later on. Alright, first off, we have my guy Koa Peat, who I found out about this past summer during the Team USA U19 run, in which he nearly instantly stood out to me as a player that can contribute to winning without needing to be a star player. And this trend obviously has continued on into his collegiate season as he's playing for #1 ranked Arizona, who's been able to pull off impressive wins without needing Koa to shine in the spotlight. And I'm not just saying this to say that Koa has underperformed, but he's just shown that he's able to step aside at times and still contribute to winning while playing on such a talented roster. Koa's game revolves around his unique mix of physicality and finesse, as he is an interior bruiser with a smooth and refined mid-range game that he uses to take advantage of defenses by attacking at unusual spots on the court. Koa also excels on the defensive end, as he's very strong and fundamentally based, with potential to be an above-average NBA defender once he progresses more in the league for those reasons. The clear holes in Koa's game is that he's a non-factor beyond the arc, and also that he has a 6'8" frame and isn't able to consistently make up for his lack of size while playing the power forward position. As of now, Koa projects to be around the mid-lottery draft range, but he could potentially fall to nearly the 20s simply due to how talented and competitive this draft class has been. Next up, we have Hanez Steinbach, or Hans Steinbach, who is becoming known for his ability to snag boards at a crazy rate and put up double-doubles just about every night, although he arguably played the worst game of his season just 1 week ago, with the positive being that he still put up 15 and 12, but the negative being that it was inefficient and it was in a shocking loss to Seattle University. With that being said, Steinbach is a 6'11", relatively traditional big man who is a rebound vacuum that reminds me very much of Domantas Sabonis, with a much more impressive defensive game, although that may just be the Kings fan in me talking. The reason I say that is because of his bruising big man tendencies, his deep post-move bag, and his ability to knock down an occasional three, combined with his impressive court vision and his never-ending fight for correct positioning against his defenders. He's constantly pushing defenders around and using his physicality to create putback shots for himself or setting Gortat screens, which ultimately generates easy offense for the whole team. Now, the part where he separates himself from Sabonis is his defensive prowess, where he shows to be very fundamentally sound and in control of his body. He's usually very aware of the offense around him and shows off his fluid athleticism when he makes impressive steals and blocks. At this point in the season, I think it's very fair to say that Steinbach could be on the same tier of prospect as Koa Peat for NBA front offices, but it's still early to guess, and we still have conference play ahead of us. Next up is Jaden Quaintance, who just recently made his return to the hardwood for Kentucky after he transferred there while dealing with a 9-month-long ACL injury. Last season, Quaintance was a 17-year-old freshman at ASU who looked very raw and athletic on the defensive end and in the paint on offense. This year, in the 2 games he's played, he's been on the court for just 12 minutes per, but had an amazing return game against 22nd ranked St. John's, in which he looked both much stronger and much more skilled from outside the paint. Although he still looked very awkward and rigid with his movements, which seems to have carried over from last year. Regardless of his seemingly uncomfortable athleticism, he reminds me of a wrecking ball on the basketball court. He's very physically imposing and aggressive, while also being slightly shorter but still very solid defensive prospect that can fly high. For those reasons, he's gaining many comps to Rob Williams or Onyeka Okongwu, and I'd be surprised if he falls out of the top 10 in the draft this year due to his impressive college experience at a young age while still being raw and highly talented. Next, we got Adara Mara. Mara, in my opinion, could be valuable as a first-round pick for nearly his frame alone. He's really well built for a 7'3" center with a 7'7" wingspan, and is still able to move with above-average agility for his size, And in a league where teams have to deal with Goliaths like Wemby, Chet, and Edie, Mara could easily be used on nearly any team just to combat them alone. But his height isn't his only value, as he's shown flashes of playmaking similar to the flashes of playmaking Jokic was showing at the same age. And even though I think Jokic is one of one, and making comps to him just isn't really fair, I can't deny that Mara has made some passes that at the least show possibility to become on par with some of Jokic's more impressive passes. I do think Mara's game has a lot to be desired from an aspect of consistency, but there is an argument to be made that his Michigan team doesn't necessarily need him to be very consistent, given the fact that they have two other great bigs in Jax Lendeborg and Morris Johnson. This inconsistency in his impact does have its upsides though, as when he is needed to make a big impact, he's able to play some solid minutes where he goes all out and impacts nearly every shot in the paint, while muscling in buckets on the offensive end and throwing around dimes with eyes in the back of his head. Overall, I think Mara is still a very underrated prospect, as over time I can fully see him hitting a high roof as he develops into an NBA role, and as this season is progressing, I'm starting to wonder why a guy like this isn't being viewed as optimistically as a guy like Nate Ament, who is generally staying high on draft boards due to his raw potential, solid frame, and flashes of NBA-worthy skills. But when I'm watching Mara play, he seems to give off that same vibe, but he's arguably performing even better than Ament. And although I understand they aren't the same types of players at all, if they're both showing the same levels of potential while both still needing development, I'd much rather take the 7'3" center that can become a paint monster than the 6'10" forward that just might be able to shoot the three ball well. And finally, I want to end with a little bit of a deep cut. Iowa's 6'10" forward from Spain, Alvaro Fieres. Fieres is an interesting prospect due to his high levels of experience both as an international player and in the US, along with balling out at RMU the last 2 years in the Horizon League against lower D1 competition. Fieres has proven to be a floor spacing, toolsy wing with great size for his play style, but a lack of interior strength. He's an even more interesting player given that he has a wingspan of 7'6" and uses it very effectively in both passing lanes and when altering shots in the paint, which is realistically the only thing that justifies him being a paint-heavy player. Even further than his interesting archetype is the interesting situation that he's in, as Coach Ben McCollum at Iowa has kept him coming off the bench throughout this season while playing very limited minutes, despite the fact that Alvaro has proven himself to be the second best player on that roster behind Bennett Sturts. This confusing playing time restriction, which may stem from a locker room problem, paired with the fact that Fieres has had his worst performances this year in the biggest games, are definitely the main reasons why he's been staying off draft boards this year. But when you look at the player alone, he's a solid stretch forward with a crazy efficient shot diet and the length to fill up the stat sheet with stocks and rebounds, along with the height to read over the defense and whip around impressive assists. For those reasons, I believe Fieres will make his way to an NBA court someday, but it may not be as a result of being picked in this upcoming draft if he isn't able to gain his coach's trust and prove himself in some sort of big moment this season. Alright, well that was my personal list of my top 5 favorite big men in this upcoming draft as of now. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'll try to get out another video on my top 5 favorite guards soon enough, and I'll see you guys in the next one.